Hello. So glad that we're sharing together tonight. I'm excited because we have almost 100 people signed up from all over the world. Of course, many of them won't be here with us physically. They'll just receive the recording because it's the middle of the night for them. But it just brings joy to my heart that this exploration of the joy of being present for life is beginning to spread like wildfire all over our planet. And as far as I can see, that is how our world will be healed. Because the more you are here for life, the less you can do harm to yourself, to others, and to the planet. So you're all muted. And what we'll be doing is I will be seeding our conversation tonight with some ideas. And at any time, if you want to ask a question, just simply hit 5 and the star button on your phone, and then a little thing will pop up for you to, and I will see that you want to ask a question. I may not answer it right at that point. I may be finishing a thread of thought, but I will get to you as soon as I can. And, of course, at the end of my sharing, then I will open it up and see if anybody has anything that they want to add to it, experiences they have had, questions they've had, insights they've had, or just what this kind of conversation, how it is touching you. Because there is so much that we long for in this wild ride called life. We long for, a different body. We long for greater health. We long for a soulmate. We long for more money so we would have more freedom. But really, truly, underneath all of that is this deep cellular longing to actually be here for life. Most of us are not here. We experience life through our thoughts. We think about life. And as you've probably noticed, this mind, I think it's Deepak Chopra that said we have 65,000 thoughts a day, and I add that 95% of them are repeats from the day before. And if you had a little door on your forehead, and you could open it up and watch how your mind talks all day long, you will see that it struggles with life. It is trying to get to a place that it thinks that finally everything will be okay. If it stops this, if it does this, if it understands this. And yet that is the endless game of the mind. And what we're exploring here is how to bring our attention out of the mind. I'm not knocking the mind. It only took the universe 13.7 billion years to make it, and it is an exquisite tool for maneuvering through life. But it's not reality. And it separates us. To think our way through our life separates us from that deep and vibrant, trust-filled connection with life that we most deeply, deeply long for. So I want to highlight 3 different pieces of this discovering how to use your mind rather than being lost in it. And each of these 3 pieces I have woven through all of my books, my radio show, my blogs, the online courses, everything. And so I just want to highlight the three core threads of what allows us to unhook from our struggling self rather than being lost in it. And so I want to start with an image that I absolutely love, and I've just been spending a lot of time with it in the last year or so because it really describes the core of what we are exploring tonight. Just imagine the most beautiful ocean you could imagine. I call that the ocean of being. That is who we truly are. And that is what we long to reconnect with. We knew it when we were very little, but we left it for our minds. So floating on that ocean is a small, opaque bubble. I call it the bubble of struggle. And that's where most people live most all the time. And, most of our struggles are just, tiny struggles. Will the stoplight change before I get through it? Will anybody notice the spot on my shirt today? Or, oh my God, I'm having a bad hair day. But the more we're caught in our mind can kind of like our struggles can have babies, and then they can have babies, and then pretty soon we can be caught in realms of deep self-rejection and deep despair and a sense of being all alone. That is what it is like to live in the bubble of struggle. Before we begin to share these three things, I want us to take a few moments to just relax into this moment. For most of us, this is we're having this conversation at the end of your day, and there's a momentum that builds up during the day. And so I invite you to close your eyes if you can in the space that you're in. And just for a moment, notice your breath. What is it like? Don't try to change it. Just notice it. And there's a pretty good chance that your breath is mostly happening in your chest and that it's pretty shallow. And so I invite you on your next out-breath to begin to extend your out-breath. And you can even add the great sound of letting go, if that calls to you. Allow that out-breath to be much longer than is normal for you. Don't force it, but you'll find there's so much air left in your lungs. And then naturally allow an in-breath to come to you. We don't need to try to breathe deeply. In fact, if we do try to breathe deeply, we oftentimes add more stress. And so we allow an in-breath. And there is the deliciousness of the letting go on the out-breath. And then again, allowing an in-breath. And then, And let's do this for a minute or so in your own rhythm, allowing an in-breath. And then extending your out-breath. And if you're in a public place, you can say that sound quietly inside. just for a few more breaths, allow a long, slow out breath. Deepen that out breath. And then allow an in breath. And now allow your breath to be as it wants to be. But notice, is there any difference after just a minute of a deeper breath? Any difference in your calmness, in the aliveness of your body? And then when you're ready, open your eyes. Now, the wonderful thing about this way of working with awakening back into life is it's absolutely okay, whatever happened when you heard that invitation to deepen your out breath. Even if the mind resisted the whole time, even if you were texting the whole time, because the healing we are ready for doesn't come from changing anything. That's the old paradigm. I think it was Brene Brown that said, my God, if how-to books worked, we wouldn't be such an overweight, drug-addicted, consumer-oriented society. The mind keeps on trying to heal. But that's not what we're exploring tonight. The healing we are ready for doesn't come from changing what is. It comes from the ability to see and be with what is. So just notice and acknowledge with yourself, what did your mind do with this invitation to breathe a deeper out breath? Freedom comes when you can learn that ability to be curious about what is rather than always trying to change it. So, the three things that I want to weave through our conversation tonight, and remember, if you do have a question, you hit the number 5 on your phone and then star, and then a little thing will come up that will alert me that you want to ask a question, and then I will unmute you. And at any time you can ask a question. If I'm in the middle of a stream of thought, I may wait for a bit, but I will get to you. And then also we will have time at the end of my sharing that people can ask all sorts of things and bring insights, because, we're all in this together. We're all living in a time where most human beings are caught in our minds. But the exciting thing is I think Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, was written in the mid-90s, something along that line. And this idea had been, shared down through the eons, but something got awakened in the collective mind. And there is this longing to come back to the now. But I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, oh, Mary, I don't know how to live in the now. I don't do it very well. That's our old style of healing. Now I've got to do this. What we are exploring tonight is how to free your attention from this ongoing doing of your mind. So you have more and more moments where you're actually here for life, and more moments where you can actually see what your mind is talking about, and more moments where you feel the spaciousness of your heart, that you can bring such tenderness to how much your mind has struggled your whole life. So the first thing is to notice how much you think without judging it. 65,000 thoughts a day. We tumble from one thought to another all day long. And most of us, that is just all we know. And so we're not even aware that we think our way through our lives. And so it is very powerful to do something like give yourself a few minutes every day where you choose a focus. This is why, in my work, we work so much with the senses, because the senses can ground you right here. Let's look at listening. So let's say you go out on your porch in the morning and you say that, okay, for 5 minutes I am going to notice the sounds of life as they are appearing and disappearing around me. It always is helpful to, again, work with the breath like we did at the beginning, this long, slow out breath. We are only beginning to discover in the West that true freedom with our breath comes in the out breath, not in the in breath, not trying to take deeper breaths, but in extending our out breath. It is one of the most powerful ways you can calm your nervous system, the nervous system that is always subtly churning, trying to do life rather than be life. And so let's say that you are out there and you've allowed some long, slow out breaths, and then you bring your attention fully into the sounds. And as I say that, just a thrill went through my body. I live in this little 1914 cottage that is, underneath a 158-year-old maple tree, and it looks out at this magical garden. So I oftentimes sit on the porch in the morning, and I have many bird feeders and a wonderful pond, and there's just the music of the birds. And then sometimes it's the music of a car going by. And sometimes it's the music of somebody walking by on the sidewalk and hearing what they're saying. And sometimes it's an airplane going overhead. Life is music. And it's always singing itself. And yet we're very rarely here for life. And so let's say you've made that commitment to give yourself that gift of listening to the sounds, and you're just opening. You're not thinking your way through life, but you are actually present for life. And then all of a sudden you hear a car going by, and the mind goes, oh my God, I had an appointment yesterday for my oil change. I totally forgot it. Well, I can't go back to that place. They won't ever speak to me again. Oh my God, I got to call my friend Jane and figure out, where does she take her car to get her oil changed? Because, oh my God, I'm going on the trip this weekend, and I got to get my oil changed. And off we go, tumbling from one thought to another all day long. The key to giving yourself this kind of gift is to not think that this time of sitting is good if you stay present. Oh my God, we've only lived in thought most all of our life. You will drift back into thought. But when you hold that intention to be present for your life, it happens quicker and quicker that all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm thinking about life again. And then you bring yourself back to the sounds of your life. The sounds didn't leave. You left the sounds. This is such a powerful experience to give because, number one, it doesn't contain any judgment for, where your attention is, especially if you go back and you're thinking about life for 10 minutes, But number two, it's so powerful that when you notice you've gone away, you actually strengthen the muscle of your attention when you bring it back, even if you only stay there for a moment or two. Now, why don't we give ourselves this gift? This gift of cultivating the art of actually being present for life in a very confined kind of way, a sitting way where, okay, for these 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, I'm going to listen to the sounds, or I am going to breathe the kind of breath that we breathe, or I am going to explore the sensations in my body. The reason why most of us don't give this to ourselves on a regular basis is we are afraid of being here. Why is that? We truly were here when we were very young. There was a time when there was not one thought in your head, not one thought in your head. And you were life. You were life. And you were at one with it. So when you laughed, you laughed. And when you cried, you were cried. And when you were mad, you were mad. And when somebody offered you something new, it was absolutely fascinating. But just imagine that you have crawled into the kitchen and you've now figured out how to open a cupboard. And in the cupboard, you find these shiny things. You don't know they're called pots and pans, but oh my goodness, you turn it this way and that, and it's, the light is so amazing. And you put one pot down and you get another one, and you look at that, and then you drop it, and it hits the other one, and you go, oh, that sound, that we're called to that sound, and you start hitting them together, and around the corner comes your mother going, stop it. Can you feel what happened to you? And then probably tears. Because in that moment, you were wrenched out of the experience of being fully here with life. And that is just my metaphor for, this happens to us dozens and dozens of times a day. And it happened in all sorts of ways with our siblings, with our parents, with, the kids at the preschool. Over and over again, we got the message. We were not okay as we are, and we needed to be different than what we are. And so slowly and surely, we started holding our breath. We started trying to be what we thought we should be. So we left our bodies. Most people do not live in their bodies. James Joyce has this wonderful quote, Mr. Duffy lives a short distance from his body. Well, I think most of us live a long distance from our bodies because we were scared out of the moment. Another study I read once is that, those, I can't remember what they're called. Those rings at school that they're up on a bar and there's a series of rings and children grab hold of one ring and they swing from one ring to the other, to the other, to the other. And the young children, when they videotape this, the young children actually let go of the last ring before they grab the next one, a split second. And the older children don't let go of the last ring until they are holding on to the next one. That's what we learned how to do. We learned how to hold on. We learned how to tighten our bodies. We learned how to hold our bodies. We learned how to become human doings rather than human beings. And that's why I say if you have this little door in your forehead and you can watch, you'll see your mind is always trying to do life and do life right. And is it wonderful in this moment to just discover you're not alone? My main teacher, Stephen Levine, said that he wanted to create a hat. And when you put it on your head, it would instantaneously broadcast over a loudspeaker all of your thoughts. And when I first heard it, I was in a room of 200 people, and there was a collective gasp that went through the whole room. Because we tried to hide our thoughts not only from other people. Oh my God, if they saw I thought this, oh, if I thought that, oh my God, what would happen if they saw that? But we try to hide it from ourselves. And so we are lost in thought, always becoming, cut off from the joy of being fully present for our lives. So this is the first step. The first step of the 3 steps we're exploring tonight is to really discover that you think a lot and you're not alone. You're not alone. This is the human condition right now. And if you doubt what that's like to be caught in your mind, just look at human history. That is the outpicturing of human minds. And so just acknowledging that you think your way through life, and that you're not alone, and that we're actually scared of coming back to the moment, because the last time we were fully here, we got scared out of it. That's the first step. And in that step is included this ability to begin to give yourself the gift of having a focus and returning to it, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. Consistency is far more important than quantity. To give yourself that gift so you begin to develop that muscle of your curiosity, so more and more quickly you can catch yourself when you're caught in thought. I was so caught in thought that at one time in my life, in my early to mid-20s, I felt I was just the worst human being on the face of the planet, and all I wanted to do was kill myself. And I used to hate myself because I was a failure at suicide. That's how painful it can be to be caught exclusively in the world of our minds. We become at the mercy of our thoughts. So, what do we then do with all this? What the mind wants to do is, okay, well, I'm just not going to think so much, or I'm going to try to think positive thoughts, or I'll meditate for 2 hours every day, or whatever. But really, the truth comes when we begin to learn how to relate to our minds rather than from them. What do I mean by that? So I want you to imagine that you are sitting in a theater, and on the stage is a play. And it is the play of your mind. It's made up of a whole cast of characters, the kind one, the angry one, the sad one, the mad one, the grieving one, the confused one, the doubtful one, the lustful one. Oh my goodness. And I want you to imagine that when you walk into the theater, you walk down the aisle, and what you do instead of sitting in the theater is you walk up the stairs and you're on the stage. You're lost in your mind, lost in the play of your mind. And what we're talking about here is not trying to make a better mind. That can help at times. It's like redecorating the bubble of struggle. But what we want to do is come out of the bubble of struggle. And that requires this ability to begin to be able to see thought rather than being identified with it. So I want you to imagine that you, at moments, you step off the stage and you sit down in one of the first rows, and you begin to watch this play. That was what was happening in our little example of sitting on the on the porch in the morning and listening to the sounds. You're present for your life, and then getting caught in, where am I going to, get my oil changed? And all of a sudden, you're aware, oh, the mind is struggling with the oil change. It's not making it bad or wrong. It's just acknowledging it. And that is what keeps you grounded in the theater seats. But of course, at the beginning, we'll have a moment or two of that, and then we'll run right back up the stairs, and it will be caught in our mind. It will be caught in our mind all day long over the next 2 weeks or the next 2 months. But you're on this call tonight because life is inviting you to come back to life. And so more and more, you're on the stage, lost in the play of your mind, and all of a sudden you wake up and you remember, I'm lost in my mind. And you get down the stairs and you go sit. And the more you do this, you sit a little bit further up in the seats, and you begin to see more clearly. You get to know your mind. And this is just such freedom, that to learn how to say, oh my God, I've got that meeting at work tomorrow, and I got to do the presentation, and oh my God, the last one I really flubbed, and what happens if I flub this one again, and oh God, maybe I'll lose my job, and I'll become a bag lady. I mean, that's what the mind does. It can take a little tiny thing and create it into a huge, gigantic monster. And just imagine being able in that moment to say, oh, the mind is running a story about anxiousness. In that moment, you are who you truly are. You are that which can see the mind and use the mind rather than being lost in it. Is this a quick fix? No. Humanity has only been lost in thought for a couple million years, and and I don't know how old you are, but you've probably been lost in it for quite a few decades. But I'm saying just a moment of either grounding here in this moment and then slowly and surely learning the ability to notice what thought is doing. It may seem like, a drop of water in the bucket, but these drops begin to accumulate. And this extreme self-hate and terror that I lived in, every once in a while those states will come back, especially if I'm really challenged by life. But I don't get caught in them anymore because I know they're just states of mind, and I've developed that muscle of my attention enough that when we get caught in the struggles, especially deep struggles, we tighten. We're holding our breath. We're holding our body. Our brows furrow, our jaws clench, and that wakes me up. Okay, wait, where am I right now? What am I paying attention to? And to be able to relate to them and to see, oh, yes, the mind is running this story. And then to be able to bring your attention back to this moment, even if you can only stay for a split second. And maybe you go right back into the story again. But those moments of consciousness, because that's what they are, in those moments you are conscious. Those moments matter. And they accumulate. So, we've explored what it's like. It's important to begin to notice. You think your way through your life, and to give yourself the gift of a few minutes every day that you choose a focus and come back to it and slowly start learning how to see what the mind is doing. And it could be helpful to maybe set a timer with a little ding that every once in a while in this quiet time it dings, and that reminds you to ask the question, what is my mind doing right now? You acknowledge it, and if you can't really see what it's doing, but you just see you're caught in your mind, just say stories and come back to this moment, to whatever your focus was. This is all about stepping back, and more you get higher in the theater seats, and you just have a broader view, and something begins to happen. And this is the third step, and that is that your mind begins to drop into your heart. You begin to be able to watch the play of your mind there on the stage. And you see how scared it is, how much it is trying so hard, how much it believes it's not enough, or it never has been enough, or it never will be enough. How alone it feels. And what I'm saying to you is, you're not alone in these states of mind. We all experience them. And you're on this call tonight because life is saying you don't have to live on the stage. More and more you can come into the theater seats. More and more you begin to, your heart begins to open to how much your mind struggles. And then you become aware that you are not alone in that. That's so important. We all struggle. I don't care if you are, I don't know, you've made it to the top of the, movie star world, or you're the president of France, or, you are a billionaire, or whatever. All of us live in a mind that struggles. And what we're talking about is learning how to be present enough for our mind so that it doesn't run us. So amazingly wonderful thing begins to happen as your heart begins to watch this play of struggle on the stage. You notice for the first time there are exit signs in the theater. You've never even noticed them before. And it's a little bit scary, because you've lived inside the theater of your mind for most of your life. And, you think, oh, no, I'm just going to stay in this theater. But one day you're just compelled. And you get up and you walk to the nearest exit sign and you walk through the door. And there you are in the absolute beauty of life. Now, it does take time for the heart to begin to open again. All of us, our heart is such a deeply, deeply sensitive instrument. And for all of us, it was not safe for it to stay open. And not only was it not safe, but we put armoring around our heart. And for some of us, like myself, my armoring was, bigger than my body. 6 feet of concrete. I was completely shut out of my heart. And I had learned this art of being curious from my very first teacher that came into my life when I was 27 or 28. But it wasn't until I met Stephen Levine, who, when I was, about 39, that he was the human being that brought me back to my heart. And that is when the true healing started to happen, because it's like it says in The Little Prince, it is with the heart that one sees rightly what is essential is invisible to the eye or to the mind. And slowly and surely the armoring loosened around my heart. And I began to be able to enfold my fear, my despair, my self-rejection, my not-enoughness, my irritation, my doubt, my grief, to actually touch it like you would a child that is hurting. Or as Stephen would say, can you discover how to treat yourself as if you were your only child? And so I want to tell you a story about, that kind of will bring this all together. I had an auto accident when I was 24 and destroyed my car. The man that hit me head on died, and And I had a lot of trauma in my body, and so I've lived in a lot of pain. And the gift of that was that it squarely put me on this path of awakening, because I began to see pretty early on that, after I had met my first teacher, that what I was doing was trying to resist this pain, and resistance only made it worse. And so I dealt with it in many ways over the years: physical therapy, and with orthotics, and acupuncture and massage, and SI belts, and and everything. But eventually it led to a spine surgery, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. And then that the pain, it helped immensely, but then the pain began to come back. And then I had another spine surgery in February, and come to find out that there was a cyst in my spine. So this was a very, very intense surgery because they had a hard time getting the cyst off on my spinal cord. And so it was a pretty intense time, and then I recovered from that. But it didn't relieve most of the pain. So I went and had an MRI, and come to find out an amazing thing. I have a pretty severe case of hip dysplasia, which means that my hip socket is extremely unstable. So the surgeon that I went to said, usually with people that come in with the kind of difficulty with their spine and their SI joint that you have, we start by replacing the hip first, because it is, it's like if you have an unstable foundation in a house, the rest of the house, it begins to get cracks and so on and so forth. So my SI joint and my spine had cracks in it. And so I, 3 weeks ago, had hip replacement surgery. And, I shared with some people before I went and had the surgery. And basically the message I got back is, this is an easy surgery. My first inkling that maybe that wasn't true was when I saw the surgeon a couple of weeks before the surgery. And he said, I'm so glad that this is really a kind of a non-invasive type of surgery. He looked at me and said, this is not a non-invasive surgery. And besides, for the first 3 weeks after the surgery, you will wish you didn't have that surgery. And I still had this hope that it wouldn't be as intense as the spine surgery. And so last week I went and had my 2-week post-op checkup, and they take an X-ray because they want to see, how the hardware is doing and all that. And I was laying on the table, and the X-ray technician, he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm slowly progressing." And he said, "I'm in for a lot of the surgeries," because they take X-rays, all during the surgeries. And he says, "I'm just amazed anybody heals at all, because this is really a brutal surgery." And I had to agree, because between the the surgery and the anesthesia and the pain meds and the Eliquis. I had to take Eliquis because of blood clotting and so on and so forth. Oh my God, I've been sick as a dog and have very few steps, so I'm trapped. And this was I have a few steps around my house with a walker, but I can't drive for 2 months, or maybe even more, because of the spine surgery. The nerve in the spine surgery got activated from this surgery, and so my recovery is slower than most. And so it is that feeling of being trapped was one of the main experiences I had of life, and why I tried to kill myself. And so here I am in the middle of a recovery of a surgery that I still, even after the surgeon told me, I was hoping that it was going to be what my friends have said, a fairly easy surgery. And I was nauseated a lot, and I just, sometimes I would put weight on my leg, and it would just be shooting pain. Oh, my God, so intense. And sleep, oh, my God, sleep. Sleep was a very precious commodity. So it was like living in a hurricane. And because there were so many levels of pain, my mind was having a hard time with it, even with all the work I have done. I was still able to come into the eye of the hurricane over and over again, but I couldn't stay there very long before the winds of resistance and just, oh my God, when is this going to end, and when can I get some sleep would take over, and I would tighten again, but I would come back. And then my son came over one day, and this is about week and a half, into recovery, and he set up an old VCR and gathered all the tapes. I have a whole bunch of tapes from the kids when they were growing up, VCR tapes, and I want to turn them into digital. And so I thought, this would be a great idea to go through them and see which ones I wanted and all that. So he got that all set up, and then he was popped tape in, and it was really fuzzy, and so he was busy working with the the connections to see if it wouldn't be so fuzzy. And there I was. And it was a videotape of a class I did in my home, probably in the late 80s. I have no memory of this class. I have no memory of this class being recorded. But I was telling a story. And this is the perfection of life. The story I told came from Joseph Goldstein. And he is one of the three people that brought insight meditation to the United States, many decades ago. He, Sharon Salzberg, and Jack Kornfield. And so before they did that, he sat in silence for a year in Burma. And he said he sat in his light body. In other words, his mind was basically quiet. And that's why I love that image of the ocean of being. When we pop out of the bubble of struggle, there is the ocean of being. And it is filled with quietness and peace and trust and ease. But his visa ran out. So he had to go back to the U.S. and get that all straightened out, and then he flew back to Burma again, and fully expecting to sit in his light body again. And he said, I sat in a concrete body for 2 years because I wanted to get back to my light body. That's where most of us live all the time. We're always trying to get to some place else. And, that it took him 2 years to begin to realize what was going on really bespeaks about how seductive this is, this urge to do life and to do it right. And if I just only do it right enough, then everything will be okay. And he said at the end of those 2 years, he finally began to see that the mind was totally not accepting of what is. And that became his intention. And in that moment, I had just been so overwhelmed with, so much discomfort. I popped out of it. And I saw that how much my mind was not only resisting this, but how much that resistance amplified my suffering. And from that moment on, for the last week and a half or so, there is been this deep commitment to say yes to what I am experiencing. And yes, this doesn't mean that I don't get, caught in my mind, because, I'll be woken up in the middle of the night and, again, there's the mind. I'm woken up through pain and, it just wants it. Oh my God. Oh, I wish this would go away. I want to sleep, says the mind, But slowly and surely, a couple of deep breaths, just like we did at the beginning, all of a sudden then that ability to see how much the mind is struggling. But the most important thing is to begin to touch it with my heart. You know what I'm talking about. You may not have experienced with yourself, but you've experienced it with a friend or maybe a therapist that you're having a hard time, and you share with them what you're experiencing, and that friend doesn't try to fix you. They don't offer any advice. They are not judging you. They just are there listening to you. And if you had that experience, you'll see that after a few minutes of sharing, you feel better, and it looks like nothing has happened. What has happened is somebody else's attention has been fully present for your experience, and all the tightness begins to let go. And that's what I began to be able to do again with this discomfort that still continues to this day. I mean, it's I'm just barely 3 weeks into my 2-month exile of living mainly in my bedroom and not being able to drive and go out and so on and so forth. And now I've got to get myself to PT and see if they can get this leg to work again, because that's what happens is the leg forgets how to work because it was so traumatized. And that's why you can't drive, because you've got to be able to put your foot on the accelerator and then pick it up and put it on the brake, and most people can't do that for 6 to 8 weeks. So you can get that sense of what I've been experiencing. But these 3 things that we have explored tonight, the remembering that most of the time you experience life through your thoughts, and then the beginning to give yourself a few minutes every day where you focus on this moment and then become curious when you notice that your attention is back in your thought. Your ability to begin to become curious about that. Oh, that is the fear. And then your ability to touch it all with your heart, to say to your mind, I see that you are afraid. Your mind is just like you are. When somebody acknowledges what you're experiencing, you let go. And the same thing with your body. As soon as I acknowledge nausea or shooting pains down my leg, I see, dear stomach, you're having a hard time. That presence, because that's what presence is. That presence is a force of healing that we are only beginning to be able to tap into. So, if this calls to you, give yourself the gift of a few minutes every day, or buy one of my books. All my books have all these things woven through them, or come and be a part of the online course. The new one is starting in a week or so. It's called What's in Your Way is the Way. And email Deborah. She's the woman that got you signed up for tonight, and we want to give you all a really nice big discount. I think it's $150 off. So just email her, and I think, oh my gosh, I think you email her and you say you want the summer to discount, or just email her and say I want the discount from the free night, because this what we're learning here is a language. It's the language of the aware heart. And most of us have only lived in the language of our mind that is always trying to do life and do life right. Like I said earlier, I'm not knocking the mind. It's a wonderful tool, but it is a horrible master. When you learn this language, you learn how to relate to your mind rather than from it. You learn how to use it rather than being lost in it. Is this the quick fix? No. But if you look carefully, you'll see all the quick fixes you have done in that bubble of struggle haven't really brought you the freedom that you long for. And so how we come out of the bubble of struggle is beginning to explore it, become fascinated with it, to begin to see how much it struggles. And then we begin to see how much other people struggle. It's just the first time I woke up in a grocery store that I was fully there, and realized that I was probably the only person that was fully there, although I've done this many times since. And oftentimes I meet children that are there. It's just so wonderful. You look them in the eye and your eyes twinkle and they just big, huge smile. But most of the adults are not present. And that is when my heart began to go into grocery stores or Costco or whatever and began to realize that most of the people in that store with me or on the freeway with me or in the theater with me were caught in struggle. And I believe very strongly that those kind of moments where you are fully here, you make a difference in every single person's life that's in that room with you because there's full consciousness there. And that is what we all long for, full consciousness. So, my goodness, wasn't that a mouthful? It just kept on coming and coming. So let's see if anybody has anything they want to add to this, any questions they have. And again, you hit the number 5, and then you hit star on your phone. And we'll just pause for a few moments to let you listen to, whether there's a question or, maybe there's something that's been said that really touched you and you just want to share it. You remember all the other people on this call are living in the same kind of mind you are, and it's just so powerful to begin to be real about what you are experiencing and then share what touches you, what makes sense to you. So I invite you to come back to your breath. Let go of everything that you have heard here right now, because that belongs in the already lived. And just find your breath again. Allowing your belly to soften, your shoulders to let go, your jaw to unclench. And now ask yourself, is there anything I want to ask or want to share? And as we spend a few moments listening, keep on coming back to your breath. And so no questions tonight, but that's okay. Just like we did at the very beginning with the breath. The healing we are ready for doesn't come from changing anything. It comes from the ability to see and be with what is. So just notice what your mind did when you heard that invitation to ask a question or to share something. That is where the healing out of the bubble of struggle, that's where it happens. So thank you all. It has just been my joy to share this with you. And if you have any questions about how you can continue to develop this language, this is the language of the aware heart. Email Deborah. She is just a marvelous human being and is just such a she's the backbone of what I offer to the world, and she will respond to you. And in the meantime, I leave you with one of my most favorite images, and that comes from sitting on the moon. So come and sit on the moon with me. I have just a whole bunch of wonderful lounging chairs up there. And as you settle in, there before you is our home. This beautiful blue, green, white jewel of a planet. And see her vast creativity. Fields of wildflowers, pods of spinner dolphins, majestic icebergs, ladybugs, aardvarks, anteaters. Such vast creativity. And all the many forms of water, whether it's rain or waterfalls or rivers or lakes or oceans. The blood of our planet. And see that on this planet there are 7 billion people. And some of them are sleeping, and some of them are walking, and some of them are driving, and some of them are swimming, and some of them are dying, and some of them are birthing. But most all of them have clouds around their heads. They're caught in thought, trying to do life and do life right. Then imagine yourself going out into the world. And you meet someone, and you really are present for them. You really see them. And their clouds begin to thin. And then as they turn and meet other people, they thin other people's clouds. And see this spreading like wildflower across our planet. Wildfire. I guess it could be wildflower too, but fire across our planet. That the more that we are present for life, we become a healing presence in the world. We need you. This is how our world will be healed. It's not going to be healed through politicians and laws and so on and so forth. It is going to be healed one person at a time as we learn how to unhook from the world of struggle and instead show up for our lives. Maybe just a few minutes a day at the beginning. That's okay. But remember, those moments matter and they accumulate. And one day it becomes easier to be present for life rather than being caught in the world of thought. So I thank you, my friends, for all the children that are coming after us, because you well know we are in a crisis time, a tipping time, and you can make a difference with how you work with yourself inside of you and how you are present for the world. Do not judge yourself when you are not present. That is just old mind. And keep on remembering you've only lived in your mind for most of your life. But know moments of being present matter. So I thank you for all the children that are coming after us. For we are the way showers. We are the ones that can clear the pathway back home. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.